Leesburg. We have a very exciting theme for the year of 2023, and it's living out loud. And the theme for the month of April is the power of vulnerability. Today's message is vulnerability, seeing and being seen. And it will be presented by our wonderful guest speaker, Bridget McCann. Now, as we officially kick off our service, we invite you to get comfortable, sit back, watch our video, and welcome. Please join us as we create our sacred space. We set our intentions of deepening into our awareness and practice of our 5 pillars of spiritual living by lighting this candle in our virtual world. Our first pillar is sacred study, represented by the divine quality of truth. We use this pillar to recognize the importance of an open mind and the power of our minds. The second pillar is affirmative prayer, represented by the divine quality power. This pillar honors the power of prayer in our daily lives. Our third pillar is meditation and the divine quality of peace. This pillar reminds us of the importance of meditation and the peace we feel when we quiet our minds. The fourth pillar is circulation and the divine quality of life. We know that the great law of circulation works in our lives. As we give, so shall we receive. And the fifth pillar is sacred service and the divine quality of love. This pillar affirms our call to be of service to our world as we see through the eyes of love. Let us close our eyes as we bless this sacred space and our time together. As we weave each of these pillars of spiritual living into our service today, may they deepen our own spiritual practices of study, prayer, meditation, circulation, and service, expanding our minds and our hearts to the 5 divine qualities of truth, power, peace, life, and love. We also bless everyone who made our service possible today and everyone in attendance. May the energy of love that is generated here bless everyone abundantly, and so it is. All right, everyone, welcome, welcome, welcome. And before we go into our meditation, I want to invite you, if you have any prayer concerns or celebrations, to add them to our chat, and we will include them later in our service when we do our affirmative prayer, which we call spiritual mind treatment. So a little introduction to the meditation today. Yesterday was one of those days that I just got word from 3 friends who are all going through a lot right now. One is dealing with the death of a loved one. One has some very serious health concerns. One has some career concerns. And I felt myself just getting overwhelmed at one point of all the friends that are going through something. So I picked for today's meditation, the loving kindness meditation. Some of you are familiar with this. If you're not, let me introduce you to a new meditation. It is just such a powerful meditation. So I invite you, as we begin, always to just settle in your chair, get comfortable, relax your body, and take a deep breath in. Bear with us. That's okay. Bear with us and just take a moment. Take anything that is a burden that you're carrying and just set it aside for a moment. Inhale peace. Exhale tension. Inhale ease. And exhale any dis-ease, any discomfort. And just let your mind and your body relax into this moment, the sacred moment, what we call the now. Like giving yourself recess from any burdens, any worries, any concerns that you have. So this is called the loving kindness meditation. And I'm going to say something and I would invite you to just repeat after me. You can leave yourself unmuted. Just say it to yourself and really listen to the words as you say them. Breathe in and say, may I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be filled with peace and at ease. May I be happy. Take a moment and just let those words of self-care just really settle into your soul. Now I invite you to think of someone who also needs these words right now. Maybe you know someone who's struggling with grief, struggling with depression or sadness, struggling with some health issues, struggling with some career concerns. I want you to picture that person in your mind's eye, and we're going to send out some loving kindness to them. Once again, I'll say the words and you just repeat after me, but hold that image of that person who you're sending these words to. Hold that image in your mind as you say these words. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be filled with peace and at ease. May you be happy. Take a moment and just hold that image of that person that you're thinking of in your mind. Give them a little hug virtually. We know that we're all connected. We know that wherever they are, somewhere they're feeling these good thoughts that you're sending them at this time. Now here's the hardest one. You ready? Think of someone with whom you are not at peace, someone who disgruntles your energy, makes you feel a little at ease, causes you to feel some friction. Let's send that person some loving kindness at this time. Are you ready? Do you have someone in mind? Here we go. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be filled with peace and at ease. May you be happy. One's a little tougher, but you know what? I always feel a bit better after I say that. That person who's getting under your skin, they need love. They need kindness too. Let's fill them up. And now the last one, we're sending it out to everybody, all beings, all the people, all the creatures on our planet. Yesterday was Earth Day, right? So let's just send out love and kindness to everyone and everything that shares this beautiful blue marble with us. Here we go. May all beings be filled with loving kindness. May all beings be well. May all beings be filled with peace and at ease. May all beings be happy. Take a moment. Do a quick body scan. How do you feel after this meditation? Did it energize you? Did it give you some energy? I hope so. And remember, this is something that we did here today, but you can always, always just stop what you're doing and do the loving kindness meditation whenever you feel the need. All righty. So I'm going to follow the slides. We have a guest speaker today, and I might be introducing her now. Let's see what comes up. Or we might go into our music. So let's hear from Leah, which is always a treat. And then after we listen to our musical selection for the day, I'll introduce you to our guest speaker.
Good morning, CSL Leesburg. I'd like to sing a song by Karen Drucker. And when it becomes familiar, or if you've already heard it, I hope you'll sing along. When I start my day with love, when I start my day with love, that's what I get more of, is love. When I start my day with love, when I start my day with love, that's what I get more of, is love. Oh, love, sweet love, love, sweet love. When I start my day with peace, when I start my day with peace, I feel a sweet relief of peace. When I start my day with peace, when I start my day with peace, I feel a sweet relief of peace. Oh, peace, sweet peace, peace, sweet peace. I feel that peace, peace, peace. Peace, 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 when I start my day.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Leah. Oh, we love Karen Drucker's songs. All right, it is my honor and privilege to introduce you to our guest speaker. If you're a regular attendee at CSL Leesburg, you've heard Bridget before. But if you're new, let me tell you a little bit about her. She is, I feel like there should be a drum roll or cannons going off. She's a newly licensed CSL minister. Congratulations, Reverend Bridget. And she is in a transition from being an attorney to moving into her new life, her new chapter in her life as a minister. And she is just enjoying every step of her journey. As you can read on the slide, her ministerial path is unfolding. So we welcome Bridget. We're so glad that you joined us today.
Thank you, Tamara, and thank you, everybody. Thank you for inviting me back. It's been a little while. I hope you're all well. And I'm so happy to see my friend Charlene. So it's really exciting to be a new minister, but one of the downsides is I don't get to see beautiful people like Charlene and Melinda, who was a guest speaker, I think, for you a few weeks ago. I used to see them all the time in their little 2x2-inch squares on my screen. But now I hardly ever get to see them. So I'm happy to see at least one of my friends from school and look forward to when she's all done. When is that going to be, Charlene? Do you know, one more year? All right. Okay, so this month's theme has been vulnerability. And since I'm week 4 in this month's theme, I'm going to do a real quick recap of what we've gone through so far. In case there's anybody here that hasn't been here this whole month. So week 1 was just basically what is vulnerability, what it is and what it isn't. It is being honest. It is being courageous. It is being authentic. It is not emotional hemorrhaging. It is not covering up anger and trying to pretend like it's vulnerability. It's not any of those things. Week 2 was those things that can get in the way of being vulnerable, such as fear, uncertainty, wanting to compare ourselves with others. And then last week was letting go and letting in, which basically was how we can use vulnerability to do some self-awareness and realize help us learn what we can let go because it no longer serves us, and how we can use vulnerability to open us up to all of life's experiences, the beautiful ones and the not so beautiful ones. And then this week, the topic is seen and being seen, and how vulnerability can help us build thriving relationships and thriving communities. And I want to share just a quick story about this idea of seen and being seen, and how it can just make a difference in the world. Years ago, so I live in Denver, and I live really close to central Denver. I mean, the capital is like less than a mile from me. Anyways, so years ago, I was in downtown Denver with a friend, and we had just seen a show, and we were going to go into Starbucks and get some tea. And living in central Denver, I have many homeless neighbors. Some of them I know by name, some of them I don't. But on this night, a man I'd not known approached us. And I don't know what he asked for. He may have asked for some money. He may have asked for our leftover dinner. I'm not quite sure. I don't remember. But I just stopped and I started talking to him. And my friend, she was kind of irritated. She just went on her way. But I stopped and I just engaged with this man for a moment. And I don't even remember if I gave him what he was asking for. But we spent a minute or two talking. And then I joined my friend in the Starbucks, and she said, "Wow, that was really nice of you." And I said, "You know what? He's just like all of us. He just wants to be seen and heard." Every human being wants to be seen and heard. It's that deep need in each of us. And ideally, all of us would be seen, all the parts of us that make us. Well, if we want people to see it, we have to be vulnerable, right? We have to show it to them. So I'm going to share some slides, and we're going to start from here with being a spiritual community. Let's get rooted in a couple spiritual principles that will kind of set up the rest of this talk. So I'm going to share my screen. So we have a series of we believe statements that Ernest Holmes, our founder, wrote many years ago. Any of you who have been around a while know that Ernest was kind of a wordy dude. But so I'm going to read this whole thing, but then we'll parse it out a bit. So we believe in God, the living spirit almighty, one indestructible, absolute, and self-existent cause. This one manifests itself in and through all creation, but is not absorbed by its creation. The manifest universe is the body of God. It is the logical and necessary outcome of the infinite self-knowingness of God. Not only was he wordy, but he used some jargon that we're not really used to these days. But what we're saying here is, yes, we believe in God. We believe this God is all powerful and is indestructible. But we also believe that this God created everything, even the stuff we don't know about yet, from itself as itself. So that means God is immanent in its creation, and that includes us. And this statement is also saying that God is transcendent. It's not absorbed by its creation. So God is in its creation, and it's more than its creation. And this last part is, I just love this creating, this impulse to create is God knowing itself. So what that means is God is knowing itself in part through us. And then if we look at the next principle, we believe in the individualization of the spirit in us, and that all people are individualizations of the one spirit. So what that means is each and every person that ever has been, is now, or ever will be, is a unique expression of the one God. Every person, even the ones we don't really like, even the ones that have been horrible human beings, we're all, when you put these two principles together, you get oneness, in that we're all one in spirit. We can't be disconnected from spirit, and we cannot be disconnected from each other. But we also know that oneness is not everybody is the same. Every person is unique and individual, and is expressing God in his or their unique way. It means God is giving to know a little bit more of itself through each person. And so if we can hold these two principles in our hearts through the rest of this talk, we'll know that when we're vulnerable and others can be vulnerable around us, we're letting a little more God express. We're letting God know a little more of itself, and we can be gentle with ourselves and gentle with others when it comes to even the messy parts of ourselves that we're being vulnerable enough to share. So this talk title of Seen and Being Seen. We're going to start with our own vulnerability and letting ourselves be seen and seeing ourselves, being honest enough to look within and see ourselves. And one of the great teachers of this concept, of course, is Brene Brown. Brene Brown wrote, "We cultivate love when we allow our most vulnerable and powerful selves to be deeply seen and known. And when we honor the spiritual connection that grows from that offering with truth, respect, kindness, and affection." So what we're really doing when we're being vulnerable with ourselves and showing all of ourselves to others is we're respecting ourselves and we're respecting others and we're building love. And that's why vulnerability is so important for building healthy relationships and healthy communities. Now, some of this being vulnerable with ourselves involves self-awareness, self-reflection. Now, this has already been talked about a little bit this month, but today we have a slightly different twist, and that is looking in interiorly and being self-aware in the sense of taking responsibility, being honest with ourselves and vulnerable enough to say, I think I really messed up. Yeah, that wasn't cool. I need to apologize. I need to make amends. I need to undo this thing I've done that wasn't that great. And I'm talking about a real apology, not the apology that says, I'm sorry you felt blah, blah, blah. That is not an apology, okay? An apology is, I'm sorry when I did fill in the blank. I'm sorry I didn't listen to you. I'm sorry I didn't respect your boundaries. I'm sorry I didn't keep my commitment to you. I didn't do that thing I said I was going to do. That's a genuine apology. And that takes vulnerability to admit, and I screwed up. But I'm going to take ownership of it and fix it the best I can. Being vulnerable and seeing ourselves also means looking inside and reflecting on what old ideas, false beliefs, limitations do I have that may stop me from being fully vulnerable with somebody. A big one these days with social media is this idea that I might be unworthy, that if people know the all of me, they might not like me. Now, social media was designed, I believe, they tell us, to build connections. But a lot of times we're not doing that because so many of us, we only put our best life on social media. We don't put the messy parts. And man, this is a huge problem with our young people, right? That we're comparing our whole life, which includes the messy parts, with the only beautiful parts of other people's lives, because that's all we put on social media. And now we get into this comparison thing. And we get kind of depressed, like, oh, look at these people, my friends, my family, they have these beautiful, wonderful lives. And I got some of that, but I also have all this messiness. Imagine what we could do with social media if we were vulnerable enough to put the messy stuff out there too. Think of the connections we could build if we're willing to put not only, hey, I went to this great birthday party last night, but we could also put out there, you know, I'm not feeling that great today. I'm struggling. Or even more vulnerable, man, I really screwed something up and I'm going to go fix it. If we could show the messy parts too, then we're building that connection that I think social media was meant to be. We can also look at, when we're being vulnerable and seeing ourselves, at our biases and those things that may limit how we interact with other people. We're making assumptions about other people. Like, oh, I can't share, this is my personal example, I can't share my politics with my brother because he's going to attack me. Well, maybe if I shared them, how I feel from a gentle place, and listened to him when he tried to share his political viewpoint, maybe we could connect more. So that's going to be my lesson from this, is trying to connect with my brother. So this sharing stories, being vulnerable, takes courage, right? And Janet Mock, who's a trans activist, She's out there sharing her story all over with the world. And it does take courage. She wrote, I believe that telling our stories first to ourselves and then to one another and to the world is a revolutionary act. Being vulnerable is a revolutionary act because it takes courage, but it's necessary because it's what will build genuine connection. And Janet Mock was actually a speaker at Mile High Church, where I'm a member, a few years ago. And let me tell you, she was super vulnerable on that stage. She shared a lot of vulnerable stories, and there was absolutely connection with Janet that night. This being vulnerable actually is demonstrated at the universal level, the God level, I'm going to call it, and actually in the Bhagavad Gita, which is one of the Hindu scriptures. So Arjuna is our protagonist. He's this great warrior, and he's about to embark on this great battle. But Sri Krishna shows up, and the whole Bhagavad Gita is Arjuna and Sri Krishna having this dialogue about all the different yogas, all the paths to knowing God or Brahman. And at one point, and Sri Krishna, I should say, is an avatar in the true sense of the Hindu teaching. He's an actual direct incarnation of Brahman. And Brahma sends avatars when humans have gone astray. It's like, man, I got to get down there and straighten those people out. So that's what Sri Krishna is here to do with Arjuna. And there's a point where Sri Krishna decides to reveal all of God, all of Brahman, who is the Godhead, to Arjuna. But he starts with all the beautiful parts. And after he shows all this loveliness, Arjuna's he's in complete awe. And he's filled with deep, deep peace. And then Sri Krishna is like, okay, my job here is not done. And he shows all the not so pleasant parts of himself. And at the end of that, Arjuna says, all my peace is gone. My heart is troubled. So Arjuna has seen the beautiful parts of God and the not so beautiful parts, the parts that trouble us. But as we've learned earlier in this month, some of these things that trouble us can be necessary and teach us and evolve us. But Arjuna is filled with trouble now. But Sri Krishna says to him, I showed you all of this because I love you. I love you enough and respect you enough, Arjuna, to show all of myself to you, the beautiful and the not so beautiful. And so Arjuna has this deeper appreciation for his God, Brahman, and there's this deeper connection. And I'm thinking, well, vulnerability is good enough for Brahman, it should be good enough for us, right? So we can bring this beautiful example of this level of vulnerability from the most high, you might want to call it, all the way down in our lives, because after all, we are expressions of that one. You can call it God, you could call it spirit, you could call it Brahman. It's all the same thing, right? So if we are an expression of that, then maybe we can take a lesson from that and be that vulnerable. Now, of course, we have to be vulnerable, and being vulnerable, we give others permission to be vulnerable with us. So we have to see them. Our part in that is seeing others just as they are. If they're going to be vulnerable enough to share who they are, we have to accept them with non-judgment, with non-comparison, and we have to accept they're good and they're not so good, right? If I want to be accepted as I am, I have to be willing to accept others as they are. That's honoring, that's respecting. And the real power here, if I'm vulnerable and I let others be vulnerable, is we're creating safe space. And that's where community happens. That's where thriving relationships happen. Whoops. I went too far, but that's okay. I hit the clicker too many times. So Marianne Williamson wrote, as we let our light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence actually liberates others. Now, in the larger context of this quote, Marianne Williamson was talking about letting our magnificence out. And who are we to play small? But the same thing is true for vulnerability and letting the not so great parts out. We liberate others. That is the power of vulnerability. We can be honest and authentic and liberate others to do the same. Now, this takes intentional action, right? This being vulnerable, it takes that self-awareness, but we have to follow it with action. And one of those actions is that kind of listening I mentioned, where we're just listening to others, not listening and waiting for the moment when we can tell our story. Not listening while the whole time we're thinking, oh, I got a great response to that. But listening with the only intention being to understand that person who's being vulnerable enough to share. That's connection. And that is what can help us build community. When people know they can just show up and they will be seen and heard as they are. Now, in developing this message for today, one of the big questions I came away with is imagine what we could do in our lives, in our relationships, in our communities, in our world, if we took this kind of vulnerability to all those big things that affect our society in the not so great ways, in fact, in the pretty ugly ways. The prejudices, the us, them, the violence. What could we do if we were vulnerable enough to look under those dynamics and say, what are we really afraid of? What false beliefs is underlying all of this? What insecurities do we have that's feeding all of this? You know, James Baldwin, a great American writer and civil rights activist in the 50s, 60s, 70s, he wrote, not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed if it is not faced. We have to be vulnerable enough to face these issues and then look within ourselves individually and in the collective. And when we look at that collective, of course, James Baldwin being in the time of the great civil rights movement, which hasn't ended, when he said this, he went on to challenge white people saying, okay, you white people, all that stuff you made up about Black people, you just like made it up. I'm none of that stuff. So y'all need to look at yourself and figure out why you had the need to make this up, because it has nothing to do with me. So imagine if we had the vulnerability and the collective, and we can all contribute to this by doing our individual work, but in the collective, if we were brave enough to ask those kind of questions about all these things that plague our society, and if we created that safe space so that others can do their work in vulnerability and help contribute to the collective transformation through vulnerability. If we could do that, we would have what Maya Angelou calls home. The ache for home lives in all of us, the safe place where we can go as we are and not be questioned. Isn't that a world that works for everyone, which is what Centers for Spiritual Living is about? So My invitation for us in this coming week is to have some self-awareness, spend some time reflecting. Where can I be more vulnerable and honest about all the parts of me? Where do I have to take responsibility? And where can I do a better job of creating that safe space for someone else to be vulnerable so they can show up as they are and share their beautiful parts and the not so beautiful parts, and we will love them just the same and accept them just the same, so we can all feel at home in our communities and in this world. So we can all belong. We do belong, but we need to realize it, belong in our communities, wherever we are. So let's take this into prayer. I just breathe in, opening that heart space, letting my heart lead the way, and knowing that oneness, that connection that already exists, because we are always, no matter what, connected in that one life. That same power and presence that has created those gorgeous mountains that I get to see when I go for walks and bike rides. That power of the waves at the ocean that reminds me of the infiniteness of it all. The singing of the birds as spring returns to this part of our beautiful planet. All of that, remembering that I and every person listening to these words, whether it's now in this virtual space or later through our wonderful technology, that all of us and every person and every creature, every part of creation is all connected already. We can't get away from it. We can not be connected, because it's the natural order of things. And I honor that individual expression that each person is, that each person is a little bit more of God knowing itself. And I honor that and I respect that, and all the beautiful parts and all the kind of messy parts, knowing that that's who I am and that's who every person is. We all have these beautiful parts that we're proud to share. And we all have these parts we're working on that aren't always so great, that we have the courage to share, that vulnerability. And in doing so, we liberate others. And that is a beautiful thing. And I honor and give thanks for all the people in my life and all the people in all of our lives that do the same for us. They help create that safe space for us to be vulnerable. And in the collective, we raise the consciousness, we raise the knowingness of that connection that is already there. That honoring of every single individual as an expression of the one God knowing itself. For there's only one place to go, and that's home. And that home is in spirit. So knowing this truth for each and every one of us, I'm deeply grateful, deeply in gratitude for the truth and for all the people everywhere who are doing this work of being vulnerable and creating thriving, healthy relationships and communities. It is a beautiful, beautiful thing, and I am so grateful for it. So I simply release these words into that part of spirit and that part of that universal love intelligence that only knows to say yes. It can only say yes because it knows it comes from truth. It says yes because above all else, it is unconditional love. And it can only say yes to anything that reveals more of that. So knowing it is yes, knowing it is done, I simply let it go and let it be. And so it is.
And somewhat on the theme of opening ourselves to be vulnerable and in situations where we aren't sure we aren't sure what the outcome will be. Let's put it that way. This song was co-written with a German hip hop band. Open your eyes, let a little bit of sunshine in. You know it's gonna be a good day. You're gonna make it a good day. Open the skies, let a little bit of rain begin. Sometimes we got to go the hard way. We gotta live with some pain, but walk if you wanna walk. Fly if you wanna fly. Let love out and let love in. Talk if you need to talk. Cry if you need to cry. Let love out and let love in. Open your heart. You never know, it could be the real thing. You've got to take a chance to win love. You gotta give it a spin, love, that's the best part. Taking flight now on your newfound wings. Put some faith in the highway. Know you're gonna make it. Walk if you wanna walk. Fly if you wanna fly. Let love out and let love in. Talk if you need to talk. Cry if you need to cry. Let love out and let love in. Walk if you wanna walk. Fly if you wanna fly. Let love out and let love in. Talk if you need to talk. And if you need to cry, let love out and let love in. Let love out and let love in.
Oh my goodness. That's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much, Reverend Bridget. Thank you so much, Leah, for the music. I know every time I come here, I get inspired. So many great words of wisdom that I can take in and use now and through the coming week. All right, folks, now is the time where we bless the donations that are shared with CSL Leesburg. And at CSL Leesburg, you heard in our opening video that we believe in the law of circulation. So we are a tithing community. The donations that are shared with our center bless everyone, those who give and those who receive. Your donations help our center, our CSL home organization, as well as organizations that support our vision of helping to create a world that works for everyone. And we're always looking for suggestions of organizations that we should consider. So go to our website and click on the give button, and you can suggest an organization if you think it's one that we should support. And I want to tell you that we just met last Sunday, and here's some organizations that we have been tithing and supporting from the donations. We give a percentage. One is Water.org. This is an organization that provides water to people who don't have it, clean drinking water. That's so important. We also gave to Native Hope that supports our Native Americans. And we wanted to remember the animals too. So we gave a percentage of what we received to Best Friends Animal Society. So I wanted to tell you a little bit. This isn't just something that we say on Sunday. We really do take a percentage of what we give, and the law of circulation, we give it out to others. So like I said, if you have somebody that you'd like us to consider, it could be local, it could be global. We're always interested. Just let us know. And what do? We take what we get, and there are so many different ways for you to give. Odds are you have a way that works for you. Now, join me in the blessings of the gifts, and join me in reading the words that you see on the screen. The presence of spirit within me blesses everyone I meet, tends to heal everything I touch, brings gladness into the life of everyone I contact. Therefore, I'm a blessing to myself, to humankind, and to the day in which I live. And so it is. I always get so much joy reading those words every Sunday. It doesn't get old to me. They're such powerful words. All right, and now we have a few announcements. So we are putting together some classes. They're going to be starting up in May. We're going to have a Roots class that will be offered on Tuesday evenings, 8 to 10 Eastern Standard Time. If you can join us and you'd like to hear, where does all this come from? You know, you heard Reverend Bridget mention Reverend Holmes. Where did he come up with all this stuff? And there are roots. You know, he just didn't invent this. It comes from so many different paths, so many different people. And we find that there's just this common message, and we're going to explore the roots. Stay tuned. I'm getting some messages from Charlene. It might be Tuesday nights. It might be Monday nights. As we get closer to May, we'll let you know about that. And if you're interested in that class, you can definitely let us know. I think, I can't forget about Dream Study. My goodness gracious, Dream Study. And we heard the most wonderful testimonial from somebody who came to Dream Study on Tuesday mornings at 9 a.m., joining Charlene and her friends, and they share their dreams. And sometimes you just need a little help from somebody who's not involved to say, oh, look, I see this pattern here. I see that this is relevant, and they help you interpret your dreams, because we're always getting messages. We're always getting guidance, even when we're sleeping. So if you're interested in that, come and join at this link on Tuesday mornings and join Charlene and her friends. All right, any more announcements? I think that's it. All right, folks, we are so glad that you joined us here today. Thank you once again, Reverend Bridget. We really enjoyed having you. As always, we're thrilled when we get our music by Leah. So let's do our closing affirmation. If you can join us, or after service, we hang around and we share what we call pearls, anything that really resonated with you. I know I take lots of notes during the message, and some new insights, some new thoughts, some questions pop up. Hang out with us if you can, and we'll share afterwards. It's kind of a bring your own coffee, and we just kind of hang out and talk. And if you can't stay with us any longer, if you have things to do today, just know that we send you off with our love and blessings. All right, let's do our closing affirmation. I want you to put your hands over your heart, a little bit of self-love. Remember that loving kindness meditation. And repeat after me. And if you can, unmute. You know, I love to hear you. All right, here we go. I am love.
I am love.
Guys, I love that so much. Thank you. Now, I want you to think of somebody. Could be somebody in the room with you who needs this message. It could be somebody who's far, far away. Could be a little furry companion that's nearby. Whoever you think needs to hear this. Repeat after me. You are loved.
You are loved.
Oh, I felt that. Thank you. And now put your hands up in the air, what we call love sprinkles. Remember, it's all love. Here we go. You guys, you made my day. I love hearing your voices. All right. Once again, thank you for joining us so much. And if you stay, please hang out with us. And if you can't, like I said, we'll send you off with our love and our blessings. Have a great day.